Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Good, Bad, and Ugly of Business. I'm your host, Catryn Becker. On this podcast, we love to interview people from all different walks of life, different industry types, and different roles and professions, because we believe that while a smart person learns from their mistakes, a genius learns from the mistakes of others. So we want to hear what these people have learned in their life, so we can either avoid the mistakes completely, or we can learn to fail faster, because there is a lesson in every success and in every failure, and we want to talk about it all. Today's guest has had quite a career, going from sales in a commodity industry into opening his own training company and working for himself. There's a lot that we can learn there, because sales is one of the highest paid professions and the lowest paid professions. So we want to learn from Steve Gavatorta on what has made him so successful and what he's learned in our career, so that we can all be better at selling ourselves, because that's what it's really all about. So Steve, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here. Looking forward to it.
And I forgot to mention that you're also an author. You have written a book as well, where you've shared your secrets.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So what's the title of your book?
I've been published twice, actually. The first book was called Reach Up Approach, a communication process for initiating and leveraging mutually rewarding relationships. And the second one, most recent one of about 4 years ago, is called In Defense of Adversity, Turning Your Toughest Challenges into Your Greatest Success. And I am going to be publishing a third one very soon here. I'm not quite sure the title yet, and I'm starting work on it now. So I said I'd never do it again, and there I go again. I'm doing it again.
I'm also a published author, and it's kind of, once you get started, you can't kind of quite help it. Like, I feel like I've got like several different like manuscripts kind of in draft mode, and you pick it up as you go. But let's get back to you. So you worked selling stuff, essentially, right? The things we can find in grocery stores for about 20 years. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I started off my career with a company called Beecham Products. Out of college, I was schlepping things like Aquafresh toothpaste, Clean Free dryer added sheets. So, which actually was a God gift. It was a gift from God that I landed that job. We basically we had a ton more products, but we would basically sell our products to grocery stores, mass merchandisers like Walmarts and Targets, and then drug outlets as well too. And started off my career there, spent 10 years there, started calling on retail grocery stores, then was promoted into what was called headquarter account manager, which supplied the headquarters of those grocery stores. And then I became area manager, which I managed both of those teams. I was very fortunate to land at Beecham because all of their upper level management were former Procter & Gamble people. And in the day, I'm not sure how it is now, but in the day, Procter & Gamble was known as the creme de la creme in training and development. So all the training, the skill development, the processes, leadership skills, communication skills, selling skills, I received that my first job out of college. It was wonderful. And it really carried through. Yeah, it carried through the remaining 10 years with them. I spent another 5 years with a company called Warner Lambert, and then ended my career with, I spent a little time with a marketing company called Catalina Marketing, then ended my career with Eastman Kodak, all in those same roles, selling or leading teams that sold into food, drug, and mass merchandisers.
Before we transition into what you're doing now, I would like to spend a little bit of time on sort of the mindset of salespeople and sort of what you would see that would make someone a good salesperson or not a good salesperson. Because, I'm kind of the mindset that anyone could sell things, or people sell things all the time, and they're not even kind of aware that they're selling things. I mean, anyone who's been in a relationship for more than like 3 months has had to sell themselves, right? Or getting any sort of job, a job interview is a sales process in a way.
No doubt.
Even though most people think they can't sell.
Right. No, and selling has a bad reputation, so to speak, because I do believe 80 to 90% of people out there selling in the world, selling everything, I'm not just saying certain products, are used car salesmen and women. And I'm not meaning literally used car salesmen. They are selling from what I would gather to say, a selfish perspective, or from I got to close the sale perspective, rather than looking how your product and service that you are selling is a solution or an opportunity or solves for a need for your customer. If you're selling for a need, if you're identifying an opportunity and aligning your capabilities to meet those respective needs, you're going to be successful. So, people who may be passionate about a product but are afraid to sell, if I could put the mindset that it's not about the selling of the widget or selling the service, it's about providing a solution for your customer, making them happy, making their life easier, helping them be more efficient on the job, helping them grow their business. Look at it from that external perspective. I always say, seek the win-win-win. What I mean by that is if I can help my customer win with their customer, most oftentimes, that's a win for me. So win for my customer, a win for their customer is a win for me. So thinking far out there, it's not just selling the widget, your service, you're selling a solution.
And that's a great point because, and this is a gross generalization, of course, but most times people get into sales because there is such a huge upside in pay. Like if you're good at sales, you're going to make a lot of money. But it really is a lagging indicator. If you're good at answering what's the problem that you're solving and being able to communicate that to, your potential buyers, the reward you get is the money. It's kind of not the other way around.
Well, exactly. And if you take this approach, it's out the industry. I didn't create it. It's called consultative selling or solution-based selling. That's what I focus on. And the beautiful thing about that is if you're good at it, your business should grow organically through word of mouth. So if I'm successful at solving problems with one of my customers, they may recommend me to other teams within their organization or other departments in their organization or other companies that they may own, or they may recommend me to someone who used to work for that company who's elsewhere now.
Yeah.
That's organic word of mouth. And that is the cheapest form of marketing. I don't have to pick up the phone and call anyone. I don't have to spend any money. And the recommendations coming from a trusted, valued person in that person's life. So being consultative, selling solutions, selling to solve for problems or identify opportunities, if you do it right, you will grow long-term loyal customers and you will grow your business organically.
Which everyone wants to do, right? No one's saying like, oh, I don't want to do that. But I want to talk more.
Listen, I've sold in corporate America 20 years. I've owned my business for 20 years. I'm not a lover of picking up the phone and cold calling, and you would think you have to do that as a salesperson, which you do. But I'm more driven by creating that long-term loyal customer so I don't have to do that. And for those of you who don't like picking up the phone, if you are a solution provider through your product and service, you're going to have to not have to pick up the phone and do that cold calling as much. You're still going to have to do it to some extent, but not as much as you would if you're taking a different approach.
Well, it's like thinking of the lifetime value of the customer. We all know that it costs way more to bring in a new customer than to keep the ones that you have. And I think there can be a failure in logic for a lot of people of thinking, I need more, instead of, okay, maybe, and depending on what someone's selling, of course, this is going to vary, but thinking about what's the next thing that the person needs. If it's a commodity like toothpaste, they're going to keep needing more toothpaste, but if they're selling a service, what's the next level in the service to really stay with that life cycle?
I have a graphic I share in workshops, especially around business development teams. And it's a graphic, it's busy, but I put it in screen show, which shows one of my biggest clients, Stanley Black & Decker. It has a little square with Stanley Black & Decker in it. Then I have lines driven out from that core Stanley Black & Decker square that illustrates all the customers I've gained from that one relationship. That one gentleman who trusted me, brought me in, and I did very good work for him. He recommended me to other people within Stanley Black & Decker. He recommended me other divisions of Stanley Black & Decker, and other people. Through those other relationships, I've built more relationships, and that web has continued to grow from that. And that's what you really want, is to have that, to your point, that lifetime loyal customer, where your business can grow in that manner. That gives you long-term sustainability. That's loyalty. That's where you have a really robust business.
Absolutely, because it only takes one, right? And then if you can focus on the person and building that relationship, that's really where it can grow and gather steam.
No doubt.
So a question I have for you, because I know that you've had so many teams under you and have seen a lot within the sales, is there's a perception that most salespeople are people, right? They like to talk to people, so more on the like right brainer type of thing. Have you seen many successful salespeople on the left side, on the left brainer, so more of the analytical type people?
Absolutely, especially in the world where analytics and number crunching things are becoming bigger. However, just to hit on a point, I do a lot in my workshops, in my training. I'm certified in a behavioral assessment called DISC. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of that.
Yeah,
Myers-Briggs, and then Baron EQ. And in each DISC style, oftentimes people say, oh, only high D's and I's can be salespeople. That's not true. Each style has a plus side. Each style has a downside. So each style brings strengths to the table in the ability to sell. So if I'm selling to a key decision maker in one of my customers who's highly analytical, a number cruncher, very risk averse, if I have that, that's kind of my demeanor, and I can supply that to that person, I'll be a good salesperson. I'll be able to connect with that person. Secondly, if I believe high EQ rates higher than your behavior style, i.e. I'm analytical, I'm a number cruncher, stuff like that. Because if I'm aware of myself, I'm able to read and engage others, I'm going to be able to connect. So if hypothetically, let's say I'm a type A, high I personality in DISC, I'm very gregarious, talkative, not great with numbers, but I'm selling to you, and I've profiled you as someone who is number cruncher, risk averse, more introverted. If I have high EQ in myself, I'm going to read that in you. I'm going to know myself, my propensity to maybe over talk and try to build relationships, but I'm going to realize, hey, when I'm dealing with Catryn, she wants numbers. She wants me to pull it back a little bit. So that awareness of myself, who I'm engaging with, can help me build trust through effective communication. So anyone can sell if they're sharp enough to understand themselves, know who they're interacting with. And as I said earlier, they're there to solve a problem. They're there to identify opportunities, to be a consultant for their customers. So those are the core things that I think really matter in sales.
And I want to like really make sure that we highlight something that you said, because it was very smart. And I want to make sure that the listeners really grabbed onto it. It's not about you. It's about the other person and how you can read them and adapt your style to what they need to truly be heard.
Exactly. That's what I do with a lot of I experienced various behavioral workshops when I was in corporate America, and that's one reason I left. I thought the consultants didn't do a good job of it. It was typically, here's what your style is, here's all the attributes, and don't let the door hit you in the butt when you leave. It was a nice to know for the day. Where I take it to the next level is, yes, you learn about yourself through instructional videos and through exercises that I do. I teach people to read the behavior of others. So through certain clues, and if I'm in a sales call, I'm going to start identifying what the DISC behavior style of that person is, and then adapt my approach to that person. Doesn't mean change who you are. It means that, hey, this person likes numbers. They're a little bit more risk averse. I've got to bring in some numbers, facts, and data to win that person over. So it's really being in the moment, understanding that not all people are alike. Everyone's different. The way we behave, the way we communicate, the way we're motivated, the way we make decisions, the way we deal with change, risk, conflict, adversity is different. So the more I can understand myself and recognize those things in others, the more I'm going to be able to connect with them, build trust with them. And when I build trust, guess what customers do? They start sharing with me. I can now really have a robust conversation about their needs, their issues, the opportunities they're trying to solve for. And now then I can really look in my arsenal and define how my products and services can meet the needs I heard them tell me, not what I assumed they were.
Right.
Not just because we have a promotion this month, we have to sell it. No, this promotion will be perfect for you because of these things you told me. But you must first build that trust through effective communication.
100%. We are totally on the same page on this as far as alignment goes.
Excellent.
And something I hear people say a lot is like, I can't believe they didn't want to buy this. This would be perfect for them. And I'm always thinking like, how did you communicate that to them? Because if it's perfect for them, then they will buy. And I think body language tells us so much. People are always talking. They're always, not necessarily verbally, but they're always communicating one way or the other. And sometimes the absence of communication tells you just as much as the person who's very gregarious and is speaking a lot.
No doubt. I always tell people in the sales call, it should be, and it's probably a little extreme on my end, but I'm trying to hit a point. Live by the 80-20 rule, meaning your customer should be talking 80, you should be talking 20. Let them talk. I do a lot around presentation skills workshops, and I do a lot around storyboarding, putting your message out there so it's simplistic, it's buttoned up, simplistic, it's an alignment. But even delivering if you build a presentation deck, let's hypothetically say the deck's 15, 20 pages. I would rather you go through 5 pages with a great dialogue than ramble through 15 pages and not talk.
Right.
Because, I call it showing up and throwing up. That's not what you want. You want to have a discussion, right? And get their insight. Do you agree with this? Is this what you're seeing? Is it the same thing as us? And that'll allow you to drive a dialogue, have a discussion, and either push your presentation more towards the areas that may be most relevant to them, or step back and say, listen, I heard a lot of things you said today. I think maybe let me come back. Let me revisit some things. Let's reschedule an appointment. I think if I pull some other things together, you're going to really like that. So if I'm trying to sell something that isn't relevant, it doesn't matter anyhow. I would rather stop, go back, get what is relevant, and come back in there and be viewed as that solution provider. That's the difference between a consultant and a vendor. Being viewed for the value you bring rather than the price of your product. That's the key difference.
And it's really about the questions you ask. I mean, it's never so much about the answers, but it's the level of questions that you can ask and the information that you can ascertain from that, and asking the right questions is really key. So I want to switch gears a little bit, because something that I've seen in my experience in my life with my clients is things where someone goes from being able to sell someone else's things. They're selling someone else's product or selling someone else's service, and they're really successful in that. And then they think, this is kind of fun. I've been really successful. I'm going to go start my own business. I'm going to be an entrepreneur, work for myself, be my own boss. And then, it's not so easy selling themselves as it was selling someone else. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's funny. My first job, I didn't have that assumption that selling me would be easy. Let's go that route. But when I was in corporate America, my last job was with Eastman Kodak. Kodak Film had 60% market share. The companies creating the product, the widget, the marketing, the brand name, there was a reason they were 60% market share. When I started my own business, the widget was with Kodak, the widget was the film and cameras. I am now the widget. I am now the thing that needs to be sold, right? So it is a difficult thing to do. But like with all brands, what you need to do is find out what your product and services are, then find out a clear point of differentiation for your product and services. So as an example, I knew I had the skills to do consultative selling training, leadership training, communication skills training, especially underpinned with DISC. I had the ability to do one-on-one coaching. This is when I first started. It's evolved from then, but those were the things that I knew were I'm the widget, here are my products. How am I selling these products? So define what your product and services are, what you are, then find that point of differentiation. And then when you're in sales calls, figure out how your product and service does solve a problem, identify the opportunity, and leverage that point of differentiation versus your competition.
And branding and marketing are such a key component to that. And I think the other part that I've seen as people are kind of working through their mental, programming and self-doubt and limiting beliefs and all of those kind of things that we all have, those mushy emotions we have as humans, it can be tricky.
Well, emotions are good if you're generating good emotions with your customer. I always say, if you can make business and emotional connections with your customers, you're going to succeed. So I always tell people, any company, any business is in business for three reasons, whether it be your company, my company, Stanley Black & Decker, Eastman Kodak, Bauer Hockey. Number one is to drive top line sales / cash flow. Number two is to drive profit. Number three is to grow market share or some incremental growth objective. That's number one. So if I can, satisfying a business emotional connection is basically if I can help you grow your sales, increase your market share by 5%, help you become more profitable, drive cash flow into your business. That's going to make an emotional connection.
Yeah.
I'm not selling Steve's DISC surveys today. I'm selling a way to empower your team to increase their sales. That's what I'm not. The widget is DISC. The business connection of what I can deliver is growing your market share, growing your profitability. So that's make a business emotional connection. The other is a personal emotional connection. So if I can make my customers through that look good to their boss, have them be less stressed, drive efficiency so they're not overworked, solve a problem that they've been trying to solve. If I can make both the business and emotional connection, I've hit a grand slam. That's the real key of being a good salesman, is making those business emotional connections by, again, being a solution provider, an opportunity identifier, things of that nature.
Well, the title of this podcast is The Good, Bad, and Ugly of Business. And I feel like we've talked a lot about the good. So I want to, shift a little bit more on your own personal journey and what you've learned, aside from the skill sets that you teach and that you've learned, but more on the internal things you learned. And if you could share some stories of, some of the bad and ugly that you've experienced along your way that can help other business owners, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, one of the first things I did when I left Kodak cold turkey. I hired a coach. I became certified in DISC. I had the foundation laid to leave cold turkey, and I gained clients pretty quickly through relationships. I had padded the runway to be successful pretty quick. One of the first things I did, I put my lamp is still here. I'm tapping it now. I put a sticky pad on my lamp that said, "Enjoy the process." And I kept that sticky pad up. That was faded for a long time. And what I meant by that was you're going to have ups and downs. What you're doing now, what you're focused now might not be the same as 5 years from now. Just flow with it. Let it come naturally. Let it happen naturally through thick and thin. And that held well for me for a long time. What I started doing initially when I started this business is much different than it is now. But I've enjoyed the process all along that because I've allowed myself to do that, enjoy the process. So that was one thing that helped me through this whole thing. The frustrating things are, losing key decision makers and customers. One of the biggest things I teach people is account penetration, meaning get to know everyone in your customers. Let them know what you do. Let them know your products and services. And a couple times, I forgot to do that. And a new key decision maker would come in, and I was having successful workshops with this particular client. But they really didn't know what I was doing in the workshop, and they never attended. And it was a big client, and they essentially moved on to some other things because he was assuming I was doing something I wasn't. I kind of learned that at the back end of that. But it's always be plugging, plowing the field, being a good farmer, planting the seeds. You've got to do that all the time, because there's those times when you lose a client, or someone who was your key champion moves on, or there's a restructure. You know, those things have been more harmful or not harmful to my business. That's the real world. But the biggest stumbling blocks that have happened, you know, changing of the guard, where I've had to reestablish myself, or I didn't have a chance to. So always reinventing, always making sure all key decision makers know exactly what I do, and keeping in front of them all the time.
That is,
you know, then obviously
such a key piece.
Oh, go on,
No, that's great advice.
I teach that all the time, and you know, I bit me in the butt a few times. I didn't do enough work to let the new person know what I did. Another thing I did initially too was when I became certified in DISC, and I was talking to a potential client about selling DISC. I can do DISC surveys. And he liked what I did with it, and he kept calling, we need to do a DISC workshop. And with this certain departments, I'm like, well, Ryan, it's not a DISC workshop. This is a selling skills workshop. DISC is an underpinning of it. Or we need to do DISC with our leaders. Well, it's not a DISC workshop. It's a leadership workshop. So I wanted to break him of that mindset. It's not DISC. That's the widget. That's not the thing. The benefit is the benefits from sales. So I was getting little jobs, odd jobs here, left, right, but not the full package to the entire company. So one day he calls me, said, hey, I got the okay from the VP. We're going to launch DISC workshops throughout the company. And I'm like, oh, don't call it DISC. We've got to call it something else. About a month later, he calls me and says, hey, can we use your surveys that you do if we use someone else for the DISC workshop? I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, well, the VP of sales has his own personal coach, and he said he can do DISC too. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I've been trying to tell you, it's not DISC, it's what we do with it. It's increasing sales. So early on, it was a lesson for me. Everything I talked about, all the things we should be doing earlier, I didn't do at the beginning in this one instance. I commoditized myself. I was a DISC vendor, which there's hundreds of DISC consultants out there. I was not the solution provider. I was not talking about how what we're doing is growing your sales, doing it profitably, growing your market share, or slowing down turnover, or optimizing your team leadership. I was not speaking in the benefit of what I did. I was more speaking, as a widget. So that was a big lesson learned as well, to do not commoditize myself.
And it's something that, people get in the habit of doing all the time. And I think one of the best examples is IBM versus a Mac, right? I mean, Apple has always been so good at never talking about the features, I mean, if you think about the iPod, 3,000 songs in your pocket, not that it's got this many megabytes and la, 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 that lasts this long.
Well, you're hitting a great point too. 90% of my customers are top heavy. When I look at their sales presentations, they're top heavy in features, very top heavy. And I'm like, well, I get it. I get that it does this. Tell me how the benefit of it, or, I actually call it attributes and solutions. I don't call it features and benefits. So what are the attributes of your product and service, but how are those a solution for your respective customers? That's what I want to hear. How does this drill, which does X, Y, and Z, solve for the problem of a construction worker? That's what I want to know. How can this drill drive top job site efficiencies, help them get the job done sooner, less injuries? Those are the things that are really going to connect those dots to those end customers. So that's another thing to advise new salespeople about. Know your features, but leverage your benefits.
It's because most people only care about themselves. What's in it for me, right? They want to know
Yeah.
that piece of it, and the features generally probably aren't speaking to the people who are making the buying decision.
Exactly. So that's another one as well too. Again, it's important to know the features of your product, but it doesn't have to be on every page of
You don't start
a
there.
presentation. Exactly. Talk about it, but how does this feature? How is this a solution for you? How does this an opportunity for you? That's the key. That's the key piece.
Yep, absolutely. Well, this has been so great. And I think so many people can benefit from all of the great sales tips that you have given. So thank you so much for sharing your time.
Thank you.
Please share with how someone can work with you and if there is an ideal client that you love to work with.
Yeah, I listen. If you want to work with me, do a Google search on me. All my information is out on Google. Google my name. There's a ton of information. All my contact information is out there. Just go to my website as well. You can go to a YouTube site. I have plenty of instructional videos. All my social media sites, connect with me there. My ideal client is someone who truly, whether it be an individual or company, who does want to grow, transform, and evolve their life or their business, and they're willing to invest in it. You know, a lot of people say they want to do it, but when it comes time to pull out the checkbook, they don't do it. If you want to grow, you have to invest, whether it's taking money out of your pocket personally or whether as a company allocating part of your budget to that. So anyone who truly gets the value of good training and development and will spend the money on that. And I'm not saying crazy amounts, but, you know, do something, put money behind what you're going to do for your people. You know, that's who I want to work with.
You know, it's really interesting. I was at a training over the weekend, and one of the speakers said a phrase that's really stuck with me. And what he said was, "You cut a check for speed." And, you know, we can give you the tools, you can do it yourself, but it's going to be a lot longer and probably more difficult. So if you want to get it done faster, which is the one thing that none of us have any extra of, you gotta
when I wanted to leave Kodak, I sought, as I said earlier, a personal coach. I was certified in DISC, which cost money. I did something called Coach University. I was leaving Kodak. They weren't funding that.
Right.
They weren't, right? They didn't want me to leave. They didn't know I was doing it. So this came out of my pocket, and I wanted to do that. I knew it was an investment in my future and what I wanted to do. And to be honest with you, that commitment helped drive me even harder. When I put money behind that, it made me work even harder. And believe me, I got paid back in spades for that original investment. Because what I do now, I not only love what I do, but I've been successful for 20 years. I'm happy. I tell people I don't work anymore. I haven't worked for 20 years. And I don't mean that literally. I mean that because I love what I do and it doesn't feel like work.
Like the old adage, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, right?
No doubt about it. Exactly.
Well, thank you again so much for being here. This was really great. I really enjoyed it. To the listeners,
I did as well.
Yes, thank you. To the listeners, thank you so much for being here. If you've enjoyed this podcast episode, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Make sure that you're telling other people about it so that they can learn what you've learned as well. And if there's anything that you're curious about, maybe it's a person, a profession, an industry, please reach out. I'd be happy to find the perfect guest to interview for you. Until next time, everyone, have a good one.